Was that too bright, Pat?
Yeah, you can tell, it. I mean, whenever they get up there, we just get out.
Limit does not exist.
Did it, huh? Don't it?
The limit does not exist on the lighting. I always wanted that lighting.
He makes a big difference, don't he?
That lighting makes it look good.
Oh, yeah.
Just give them test lights.
Huh? Get some catch lights on. You know what I want to do?
I was going to say
It's a pretty picture.
no.
Oh, Governor, you forgot to say one thing.
What's that?
You forgot to say.
Are you ready? I was gonna wait and let see if she could pick that up, you know? It's her show.
Well, thank you all for being here. Is everybody ready to start? Yep. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. The purpose of this press conference was to discuss the fact that we are filing our brief today in the Ten Commandments litigation that was filed against the state law. And what we wanted to do, it was to bring everybody together to illustrate something that will be in our brief. So each one of these posters illustrates something that we believe represents a constitutional application of the law. So as we explain in the brief, the lawsuit is premature, and the plaintiffs cannot prove that they have any actual injury. That's because they don't allege to have seen any displays yet, and they certainly can't allege that they have seen any display of the Ten Commandments that violates their constitutional rights. No defendant has actually posted the Ten Commandments on a classroom wall. Because this lawsuit is all based on hypothetical facts, the court can't decide the case yet. So we've asked the court to dismiss the case on that basis in our brief. If you'd like a copy of the brief, it will be filed later today, and it'll be posted on our website, so you'll be able to get a copy of the brief. The court doesn't need to reach the merits of this case. But as we've explained in the brief, if the court does reach the merits, the plaintiffs have to show that every application of this law is unconstitutional. They cannot meet that burden. In our brief, we illustrate that there are countless ways to constitutionally comply with the law. Every one of these posters illustrates at least some ways that you could constitutionally comply with the law. This is one of my personal favorites. I also like the one that refers to Chief Justice Marshall. I think that this one with regard to the House of Representatives talks about where it is situated, where these images of Moses are illustrated in the chamber, where the Speaker of the House actually looks up at them every time he holds the gavel or she holds the gavel when they have a stand-in. So I think the one with Martin Luther King and the legal nonprofits one, another one of my personal favorites that illustrates how legal nonprofits have litigated on this issue and what the litigation has focused on. So these are teachable moments that we can illustrate through these posters, and they all show a constitutional way to apply the law. And I don't know if anybody noticed this when you came in, but this poster is the actual legally required size. So it's not very big. These are all blown up, and certainly they could be posted this large and produced this large. The law doesn't prohibit that, but this is the legal size. These posters will be donated if they are produced. If anybody decides that they want to produce these posters, they can be produced and donated to schools. So no public funds are required to be spent to produce these posters. Contrary to some of the media reports, the law has not been paused. It's not blocked in any way. The compliance date for the law is January of 2025, and that has not changed. So just to be clear, we believe that there are numerous ways that this law can be applied constitutionally and that create really, really powerful teaching moments for students in our schools. And I hope that you'll take some time to walk around and look at all the different posters. I'm going to turn it over to Governor Landry if you'd like to make some comments.
Sure. First, I want to thank the Attorney General for inviting me here. It's great to be back in the Livingston building. It's interesting because when I came to AG 8 years ago in and out of government, and she took over, we put a painting in this building of Moses. Right, it's been here for over 8 years now. The Attorney General has left it up there. It was an unbelievable painting called Justice for All. And I think if we go back and we think about a quote that John Adams said, where he said that our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people, and it is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. And if we look at where we are in this country, if we look at the divisiveness that exists, if we look at the anger that some people exhibit in the way that others want to be governed, I think he speaks very frankly about it. I did not know that the Ten Commandments was such a bad way for someone to live their life. And I believe that the legislature was only following the will of the people of the state. Because when you look at the sheer votes that were cast in the support of this bill, it was done in a bipartisan support. So again, repeat this, that the people of Louisiana in a bipartisan measure spoke through this bill. I also believe that the people of this state back in last year envisioned exactly what we are standing here to do. They elected the Attorney General and placed their confidence in Liz Murrill firmly because they believed that she was the right person to be able to defend their liberties, their constitutional rights, and their way of life. As she spoke about, Moses has always been the original lawgiver. We see his face, the only full face that we see on the U.S. House of Representatives. The Ten Commandments displayed on the back of the Supreme Court building. Every morning that the United States House opens up for business, it opens up in a prayer. And yet we deny, our government in some fashion denies our citizens the right to appreciate the very things that those that they elect to the highest offices or are appointed to the highest offices can endorse. And so I just, again, I just wanted to come here to show my support. I can tell you that the Attorney General has the full support of the governor's office, the full support of the legislature as we make our way through implementing this law. And I also believe that those school districts that heed the advice of the counsel of the Attorney General, I feel that we will be absolutely successful in upholding this law. And with that, I'll turn it over to the agenda.
Thank you all for being here. We'll take any questions if you have any questions.
Ms. Murrill, how much money have we budgeted for this fight? And are your attorneys going to be handling it, or have you contracted that out to an outside law firm?
Internally, we're handling it internally through my Solicitor General's staff. And you can see what fantastic work they do when you read their brief this afternoon when it's filed. So all handling it internally. I don't have any budget created specifically for outside counsel.
Governor, you said that Americans are being denied what is practiced in the U.S. House, such as the prayer in the morning. Are you saying that there should be prayer allowed in public schools as well?
Well, what I'm saying is, there actually are prayers in public schools right now, because kids have, they don't leave their First Amendment at the door of schoolhouses when they get there. We published a book back when I was Attorney General on the religious rights of students. What I'm saying is that if we start from a moral perspective, okay, then maybe we'd have a little bit more peace in our society and in this country. I mean, we have seen when we place our faith in those moral commandments. Again, the Ten Commandments is not symbolic of any one particular religion. Many religions share and recognize the Ten Commandments as a whole. So really and truly, I don't see what the whole big fuss is about.
I may ask either of you, for the children who may not believe in God and see this in their classroom, or parents who are upset that they may be in their child's classroom, what should they do?
Well, here's what I would say. I think we've forgotten in this country that democracy actually means majority rules. For some kind of way over the last 2 decades or so, for whatever reason, our government has flipped the script, or the people believe that we flipped the script. When you elect people, you elect them by a majority. That majority gets to rule. That does not mean that if you don't like something, you have a right to be able to impose that which the majority likes. And so what I would say to those parents is that if those posters in school and they find them so vulgar, tell the child not to look at it.
Well, and I would just point out that the legislature passed a law. The law has been challenged in a court, and they've made certain allegations about that law. I'm here to show you that we can apply this law constitutionally. And so, you're asking a question that's a bigger question, I think a larger question that goes beyond the boundaries of the litigation. And, that's a legislative policy decision. And I think that the legislature, in passing this law, I perceived it as a statement that the legislature and a representation of the people that all of those legislators represent are frustrated. They are frustrated with the lack of discipline in our schools. They're frustrated with the inability of the whole system at this point to impose some rules of order. And so they went back to one of the original lawmakers who imposed order. And they said, maybe this will help, and it'll at least help start a conversation about order and why rules matter and what the rule of law means. I mean, that's the fundamental message that exists in our legal structures about Moses and what Moses stood for and the Ten Commandments stood for within our legal structure and our legal foundation. He is considered to be one of the original lawmakers and someone who contributed to the legal foundations of our country. That's a legitimate message for us to deliver in our schools, and it might also help deliver a message that does translate to other religious traditions, that we need order in order to be able to advance the educational mission.
Ms. Murrill, we do in this country recognize freedom to practice a multitude of religions, though. What do you say, and how many posters might we allow into classrooms from people of other religions who might want their religious principles posted as well?
I mean, I think that's a decision for the legislature. My job is to illustrate that this law can be applied constitutionally, and I'm dealing with the legislature, the law that the legislature wrote.
Exactly. I mean, and that, to my point again, I mean, the posters that would appear in schools would be the decision of the legislature, which is again the will of the people. And I think we forget that. We get caught up in that at some point in time and think that the legislature is out there acting really on their own. I can promise you, Ms. Murrill can attest to that, they don't do anything over there that they think is going to throw them out of their seats, right, or unelected. I think that they're out there reflecting the will of the people of the state of Louisiana.
And maybe 2 more. Okay.
Thank you all. Yeah, one more?
Are you aware of any schools implementing these posters yet?
No, because they haven't actually been produced.
And when it comes to donations, what happens if there's not enough donations made to supply enough posters?
I think the law provides for people to make donations and they'll produce posters as they can. I mean, I'm not sure what the total number would be that need to be produced or how much that would cost.
And Ms. Murrill, just to be clear, are you saying that all these posters are ways that you believe this law can pass constitutional muster by presenting them as teaching moments?
Yes, I mean, and just to kind of go back to something that I think is important to understand in the legal structure here. What the burden of proof is for the plaintiffs in this case is to show that there is not a single way to constitutionally apply this law. That's what a facial challenge to a law is. It is a challenge that says there is no possible constitutional application of this law. All of these posters, whether somebody picks one or doesn't pick one, illustrate that there are constitutional ways to apply this law. And so I think on that basis alone, on the merits, their claim fails. So, if somebody proceeds with a poster that looks different than the ones that we've drafted, that might be a different question, and we'd have to look at whether I think it constitutionally would comply or not. But there are a lot of ways that you can, and I think that's the point that we want to make. There was, this explosion of horror when the governor signed the law, and in fact, I think that was a great overreaction, and every one of these posters illustrates that. It shows how ubiquitous, how frequent the Ten Commandments comes up in our culture. And so every one of these illustrates that. This one is a quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So, I think that if you look at each one of them, it just shows different ways that we can comply with the law and that it isn't going to cause the whole Constitution to cave under the weight of this law.
Does our law require it to be presented in such a fashion, or are we just calling for the Ten Commandments to be placed in classrooms?
Our law it requires that it have a context statement. And I think that the context statement is important. There has been litigation. One of these posters actually illustrates some of the litigation around the Ten Commandments. I think that's another teachable moment, that if somebody wants to know why are they up, why is this poster on the wall? Well, the legislature passed a law, and then we can talk about other litigation that's occurred over other attempts to post the Ten Commandments. So there are a lot of ways that you can create teachable moments from these posters and from the law itself. And I think that, that's a discussion that we should be having more of. And hopefully all of these posters are going to give us an opportunity to talk about all the different ways that it can be applied constitutionally.
Where's the petition being filed today?
The petition, we're filing a brief today in
Brief.
response to the preliminary injunction.
Where, what court?
Federal Court, Middle District, John DeGravels is the judge. We will post our brief on our website.
And the posters that y'all will produce, they'll look something like what y'all have, or will they be a little bit different?
I'm not sure yet what the produced posters will look like. We might identify a few that are our personal favorites over here at the Department of Justice. And if that's the ones, those are the ones that are produced, that's fine. So I'm not sure. I'm not involved in the actual production of the posters. I'm involved in defending the litigation.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for coming.